Okay, you guys are live.
Okay. We ready to start? Sarah? Okay. So the usual chairperson of this committee, Ms. Samples, had a recent death in her family, could not attend today's meeting. I am filling in as the chair. We have a couple of things to do before we get to the legislation, but we have four pieces. Hello? Sarah? We have four pieces of legislation that we're going to consider. But first, can I have a motion to approve in a second to approve the minutes of the last meeting?
Motion to approve the minutes of previous meeting.
And I second that.
Okay, and all in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, second business, our second order of business is need a motion to suspend all council rules that require or contemplate in-person meeting and in-person voting. Do I have a motion for that?
I'll make
So
that
moved.
motion.
Second.
Okay, and everyone agree?
Aye.
Yes.
Okay, no opposition? Any opposition? Okay, so let's move on to the legislation. I will read it in. We have a very special guest today, Mr. Ludell, to talk with us more about it, but it's an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a grant agreement with the Ohio and Erie Canal Way Association to design the Rubber City Heritage Trail and declaring an emergency. Mr. Ludell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Yes, this is the phase of the Rubber City Heritage Trail from behind Goodyear, or the old Goodyear headquarters on East Market, and it follows the rail up to Fire Station 2 at Exchange. So what this legislation will allow us to enter to a grant agreement, the federal grant that we received, $75,000. It's a matching grant. We are putting $75,000 for design of this trail. So it's a $150,000 project, and the trail will be constructed with projected right now 2024 is when the trail will be bid and the construction will happen.
Okay, any questions from committee members? So this is a trail that essentially kind of goes right through the city of Akron, correct?
Yes, behind the old Goodyear headquarters on East Market, follows the rail on River Street. So it's not on East Market, it's on River, and then it follows up River, and then it ends right there by our new fire station number 2 at Market and Exchange. And then the next section will cross there and go behind Dave's Market. This trail eventually will go all the way through the city and connect all the way into where in Kenmore there at Wilbeth. So this is just another phase of that project.
Okay, and overall trail building in the city, along with our parks and other programs, are ways that we just enhance the quality of life and also our ability to attract particularly young people who like to walk and hike and use trails like that. And they would come here and live. Hopefully it would help attract people to come and live here, new people to come and live here. Is that the rationale for these trails? Or do you want to add more to that?
Absolutely. But it will attract old people like me and you.
Yeah, I know. I guess I could get away with that a little. But yes, thank you. Thank you. We want to point that out. Yes, Mr. Ludell. So Mr. Ludell, since there are no questions, I support this. How about, do you need to have this voted on tonight? Do you want suspension of the rules? I don't think there's much objection
Yes,
to
sir.
this.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay, so do I have a motion to suspend the rules and a second?
Motion for suspension of the rules.
And a
I'll
second?
that. Yes, second.
Okay, Mr. Lombardo, and thank you. And is everyone in favor? If you're in favor, please say yes or
Yes.
yay.
Yes.
And if
Yes.
you're against it, please say nay. Okay, so the motion passes, and hopefully young and old people will be enjoying that trail very soon. Thank you, Mr. Ludlow. Another ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to apply for, and if awarded, enter into a grant agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation for design and construction costs to rehabilitate the taxway lights and signage, update the taxway pavement markings, and reconstruct the airport perimeter fence at Akron Fulton Airport, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr.
Ludlow?
Chairman,
Yeah.
and members of the committee. This is a grant we're going to apply for. It's a 95% funded by ODOT, 5% by the city. And this is one of those grants that could be funded fully or partially. We are hearing that there isn't a lot of money in this fund for next year, but if we don't apply, there's no chance of getting it. So that's why we're applying for this grant. And that's what this legislation is. Pretty much exactly what you said for the fencing, the signage, and the marking of the lights.
Any questions from members of the committee? Or members of council who are not on the committee? Okay, with that, and this is part of our overall the Fulton Airport is something that would benefit us economically, correct? In terms of attracting industry and managerial people and facilitating commerce.
Absolutely. And the next piece, we'll even discuss that more about expanding our economic opportunities at the airport. But you're right. That's what the airport is doing for us.
Okay. So, and Mr. Ludlow, would you like us to, since we've had like this 5-week hiatus, would you like us to vote on this tonight to suspend the rules?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I need a motion to suspend the rules and vote on this tonight. Anybody like to make that motion?
Yep, I'll make the motion to suspend the rules.
Thank you, Mr. Lombardo, and
Second.
and Mr. McKettrick. Okay, and all in favor, please indicate yes or yay. All in favor?
Yes.
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 Okay. Anybody opposed? Okay. All right, so the motion carries. We'll move on to the next one. Ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to apply for, and if awarded, enter into a grant agreement with the Federal Aviation Administration for construction and contract administration costs to rehabilitate the runway 725 at Akron Fulton Airport and declaring an emergency. Mr. Ludlow?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. We had talked about this legislation previously, and this is the final piece. FAA with CARES Act dollars are going to fully fund this project. Earlier, we brought this to you and it was a 90% federal FAA, 5% ODOT, and 5% responsibility of the city. Well, FAA now is going to fully fund this project, so we won't have that 5% match in there. And what this is going to do is it's going to, in this project, it's about a $7 million project out at the airport. We are going to decouple what they call the 119 cross one right that runs north and south. And by doing that, we'll be able to open up developable land on the north side and south side of the main runway, which this runway is only used in a dire emergency. It hasn't been used in years. So everything south of the runway, we are going to keep this runway intact on the south end, but actually by decoupling it and putting two 90-degree turns where it doesn't directly connect to the main runway, we'll be able to either build hangars or other development on the south end of the airport, which would enhance the airport altogether. Right there, Mr. McKittrick, right there across from Strickland's at the circle there on Maslin Road, we were never able to develop that land on anything higher than I think 12 feet because that was part of that runway. We will now be able to develop that piece of land that's been vacant for years now, which is outside the airport grounds, which has less restrictions. So this is really a great project. We're really happy that with the CARES Act dollars, the FAA was be able to fully fund this project. So what'll happen here is this project, you'll see some activity, but the main runway will be resurfaced early in the spring. In the contract, they have 30 days to totally rehab this runway, so we are not out of commission for too long. So it's about a month where the airport will not be able to be used, but once it's done, it really opens up a lot of opportunity for the city of Akron and the airport flight-based operations.
Thank you, Mr. Ludell. Very thorough as usual. Any questions or comments from members of the committee? Okay. Any questions or comments from other council members who may be in attendance? Okay. With that, then, Mr. Ludell, I'm assuming you would like us to ask for suspension of the rules.
Yes,
Correct?
I would, please.
Okay. So do I have a motion for suspension of the rules?
I'll make the motion to suspend the rules.
Okay. And do we have in second? All in favor, please say
Yes.
yay.
Yes.
And all those who are against it, please say no. Okay, so that motion also carries, or ordinance also carries to be voted on this evening. One more, ordinance determining to proceed with the improvement of West Market Street between the termini of Revere Road to Hawkins Avenue and Portage Path to SR 59 by resurfacing and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. This is about 4 miles of resurfacing. Like you said, it starts at Route 59 right there by the federal building, travels west to Portage Path. And a couple years ago, we paved from Portage Path out just west of Hawkins, pretty close to Fire Station 12, a little short of Fire Station 12. So then this project will pick up where that was left off and take it all the way to the Corporation line. So you're going to see, we're getting pretty late in the year. You're going to see a little bit of reconstruction of some of the storm sewers, and you are going to see some new curb going in, but the road will not be resurfaced till spring. So the asphalt will go down in the spring. This piece of legislation is just our last piece of our notice to proceed, and it is approving the recommendations by the Assessment and Equalization Board to allow us to levy assessments against the budding properties. I do not believe we had any objections, but we still had to go through the process and have the hearing.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Ludell. First, are there any questions or comments from members of the committee?
I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Lombardo, please.
So, Mr. Ludell, is this included with the resurfacing program for the year, or is this something separate?
Something separate. This is ODOT. So they actually are going to manage the project as ODOT funds. We do have a local share in this, but no, it's all ODOT. They bid it and they will manage the project.
Other members of the committee before I let anyone else in council? Okay. No other committee member comments, questions? Anybody else from council would like to ask? Go ahead, Mr. Malik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Ludell, thank you for you continuing to update us on the timeline for this project. I guess my question was with all the work that Dominion is doing in the area, and I think is likely not going to be wrapped up until November, is ODOT working with Dominion to determine whether curb work can be done before the spring?
Absolutely. In fact, our engineering department has been in contact with Dominion. I think originally Dominion was trying to get done, so this resurfacing would be done this fall. But the way things fell, it's been pushed off till spring. So Dominion, their contractor, Dominion's contractor, does know that they cannot leave this in disrepair. They have to restore the road because the resurfacing is going to happen for another, let's say, 6 months. Okay, so they will start closer to probably 59 and work their way west as Dominion wraps up their project.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mel, anything else? That's okay. Very good. Part of this goes into my ward. And I guess just in general, the usual communication and, signage notifying motorists ahead of time will be taking place?
Absolutely. As you remember, when we did between Portage Path and Hawkins, a lot of that was done in the evening or weekend. So it was done on off hours, and we did maintain traffic. Even when they worked during business time, they never shut the road totally down. They always maintained traffic throughout the project.
Yes, it was a little bit slower, but they did maintain it. And will the same thing happen with this part of the project?
Absolutely.
Okay, so it'll be slowed down, there'll be notice, but traffic will be maintained. And so when do you think it's all going to be completed by?
Well, the asphalt plants, let's hope for great weather, and let's hope when they're open April 1st, but that could always get pushed to April 15th, April 21st. So once they're producing asphalt, it's probably going to be done closer to, let's say, end of May by the time it's all wrapped up.
Okay, and just repeat one last time. And the start date would be approximately, these are always questions that.
Well, actually, they're going to be starting soon, once,
Okay.
they'll be starting this fall with doing some curb work and, like I said, sewer inlet repairs, that type of thing. But resurfacing, the milling, and then the filling of the road won't happen until spring.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Ludell. And
You're welcome.
any other questions from either the other council members outside of the committee or on the committee? If not, then I will move ahead and ask for a suspension of the rules and see if there's a motion for that in a second.
Yes, I'll make the motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
And we have a second. And so all in favor of this, please say aye.
Aye.
And anyone opposed, please say no. Okay, that motion carries. And with it, that's the final piece of legislation before us. And can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second? Okay, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Our next committee meeting will be public safety. You can get started whenever you're ready, Councilman.
Why don't we say 3 minutes? How's that?
Okay. All right.
Or is
will
it
be
listed
freezing.
as 2:30 on some schedule? I don't want to.
It was, sure. So it's scheduled for 2:15. So
Oh, okay. So we're not
you can get
starting
started at
early.
any time.
any kind of surprise. Okay,
Right.
let's take a
Correct.
3-minute break
Exactly.
and we'll get started.
We will be staying live on YouTube, so make sure you mute your mics.
Are we ready to get started with public safety?
Okay. Let's start public safety. We have one matter left over from last week. Again, I am substitute chair. Councilman Kamer could not be here today because of some family matters, and also another member, Councilwoman Samples. So Mr. Neal, Mr. Neal, you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, I'm hoping, would you have a problem if we refer this till next week?
No problem.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. All right, let's just go to these issues, ordinances before us. I'll read them in. Oh, I have to do the first of all, is the attendance approved? Everybody approved the attendance? Could I have a motion to approve the attendance?
So moved.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
Okay, so attendance has been approved. Secondly, do I have a motion to suspend all council rules dealing with in-person meetings?
So moved.
Okay, do we have a
Second.
second? Okay, so I'll just say that is passed. And now we'll go to some ordinances that are new presented by the administration in partnership with other groups. So an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a grant agreement. Wait, that's the last one. Start doing there. The mayor to apply for, and if awarded, accept and expand grant funding from the Ohio Attorney General's Office Law Enforcement Diversion Program to support the local collaborative quick response team to address opioid overdoses and declaring an emergency. Do we have Mrs. McCullough? She here? Mrs. McCullough?
I'm here. I think, Captain, did you want to speak to it first?
Oh, and it's Safety Director Brown
Captain
here.
Posey.
Who else is here? Sorry. Is there someone else?
I think Captain Makosi from Akron Police Department is here as well.
Yes, I'm here. I believe that Deputy Mayor Brown was unable to make it for the moment.
I'm sorry. Do you want to speak?
Sure. This is legislation we're asking for to accept and expend a grant. We did apply for this grant through the Ohio Attorney General's office, and we were awarded $50,000. And what we use this funding for is to fund our QRT program, which is a collaborative with the fire department, Summit County Public Health, to address opioid overdoses, and more specifically, these folks go out in outreach. We try to get there within 72 hours from the time that someone overdoses, and then we're able to revive them through Narcan, use of Narcan, and try to get these folks to services, try to get them on the road to recovery. So this funding allows us to get those teams out and to these victims of overdose to try to get them the services that they need to break away from the addiction. And we are asking for a suspension of rules on this so we can begin expending those funds.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for explaining a little bit of the specifics of this, sounding like a very, very valuable, critical program for a lot of people. And Miss McCullough, would you like to say a few words about this also, or are you here for a different?
I'm here for this one and a different one as well.
Okay, good. Good.
But this is a program that they have been doing since 2018. And it has been pretty successful if you look at it in terms of a global longitudinal approach. So while people may not want to go into services the month that they get this visit, The fact that they're given resources and the contact benefits them so that when they are ready, they can start services. That's what the ADM board has suggested to us.
Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to, who's here? I don't want to miss anybody. It's hard to tell with these in the Zoom meeting. Anybody else here wants to speak to this? No? Okay, any committee members who have questions or comments about this?
Yes, Mr. Shursky,
Please go ahead, Mr. Malik.
thank you. Thank you, Captain Mikosi and Ms. McCullough for being here. It's good to see you. I know that QRT is a great program that we have to, really approach things from a preventative viewpoint. Well, obviously after the fact of particular situations, trying to prevent, repeat overdoses. How have things gone over the last year? How many shifts do we have of QRT a week or a month? And have we seen the number of visits go down over time since 2018, or what are we looking at?
The visits, particularly with COVID-19, were ceased for a little while, but they did resume once a protocol was put in place. And really, it's kind of an ebb and flow depending on how many overdoses we have, how many visits are made, because they try to follow up in the following 2 weeks. So typically, it's once a week that they go out. They have started making sure that they go back to visit homes that they could not find anyone at. Sometimes they find the family member, but not family members, but not the individual who overdosed. So this money allows us to have a more thorough approach to it as well.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Also, yeah, it did. But just following up quickly, are we keeping track of whether these folks end up reaching out to ADM board or to other resources, or is that kind of difficult to do?
We are, because the ADM board is a part of this as well. And they work closely with Summit County Public Health to share data and make sure that they are able to follow up if they can.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other committee members or non-committee members at this point like to ask a question or make a comment? Okay. I don't know, Ms. McCullough, are you the one, or should I ask Officer? Is this something you guys would like to see us vote on tonight?
That's correct.
Okay, so
Can I make a motion for suspension of the rules with a favorable report?
yes, thank
Second.
you. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the motion carries, and that program will go forward. Next ordinance is an ordinance authorizing the purchasing agent to enter into a contract or contracts for the purchase of a LadTech employee scheduling and workforce management software for the city's call center employees and declaring an emergency. Mr. Brown, are you here?
I think I'm going to be addressing this one, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
All right. And this is for the purchase of a software package. We're renewing it. We're already using the software in our combined communication center. It allows for a wide range of utilities in managing our people and making sure that we have the shifts covered, as well as some other personnel management aspects in the radio room. And we are looking to renew this for one more year. And we're asking for suspension of the rules on this as well. And the software, the license we have right now is coming up on the expiration date very soon. So we'd like to move forward.
Okay, and so this is designed to improve the call center performance through some software.
Yes, it's a scheduling software, so it keeps track of our people, making sure we have the right number of 911 call takers and dispatchers on hand at any given time during the day, every day. So
Okay. Okay, I think the citizens of Akron would welcome something like this that helps ensure that there's adequate staffing at the call center, because it's so important to be able to respond quickly and well to these kinds of situations that come in. So any questions or comments for, oh, Mrs. McCullough, did you want to comment on it too? No? Okay, any questions or comments? She might not be here. Questions or comments from committee members?
Mr. Swirsky?
Mr. Malik.
Thank you. Thank you, Captain. Just to clarify, how many folks do we have in the call center? And I believe we added maybe like a dozen new dispatchers this year. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I believe you have the right numbers there.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I'd like to, any other questions or comments? I'd like to just ask at a future date that someone from APD comes and talks about the call center, and particularly the training that is involved with it. I think would be good at your convenience when you are ready to come. But could you relay that request?
Absolutely. We'd
Yeah,
be
thanks.
happy to talk about that and all the things that we're doing there in the radio room.
Yes, I think it'd be good because, you know, as council people, especially the ward council people, we often get calls from people who call you, call us. And so just like to make sure we close the loop on that important very important city function. And thank you. I think I met you at one of the open house things that the chief talked about earlier. I don't know if you were here. Did we meet there?
I believe so. I've been to several of them, and I do recall having you up at Dan Street, I think, from one of those.
Yes, at Dan Street. Okay, yes, you're a memorable person, and you did a great job
I
today.
hope that's
Thank
a
you so
good
much.
thing.
Yeah, thank you so much. So can I have a motion? And would you like us to vote on this evening?
We'd like to move forward and get our licenses up to date.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so do I have a motion from someone on the committee to suspend the rules?
Motion for suspension of the rules with a favorable report.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, and all in favor, please say aye.
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 And all who are opposed? Okay, no one's opposed. So the motion carries. We've now approved 2 ordinances. We're on our 3rd. We have 2 more to go. Ordinance authorizing the mayor to apply for and if awarded, accept and expend Project Safe Neighborhoods funding from the Northern Ohio Violent Crime Consortium to support the Akron Strategic Hotspot Initiative and declaring an emergency. Do we have Mr. Brown here, or who's going to handle that from the city?
I can, or the captain can.
It's up to you guys. Who wants to go first? But you can.
Go ahead, Carol.
Okay. So this is another continuing grant. We came to you before and talked about this previously. The Project Safe Neighborhoods funding comes through the Northern Ohio Violent Crime Consortium, and that relationship allows us to get what is essentially a sub award from that grant. The 22,000 covers 8 months instead of 12 because there was some slowdown in getting this funding out. But it is essentially for overtime, both for sworn force and for civilians. So for example, our crime analysts who spend time on collecting and analyzing data, this allows them to have some overtime funding to work on this initiative. It's specifically directed towards 2 hotspots, one that's along Copley Road and one that's along Arlington. These are the two areas where we've had the highest gun violence historically and continuing. And so the effort is to work to try and reduce that gun violence, both through enforcement, but also through working with community partners to learn about problems and to share information.
Nice explanation. Captain, would you like to add anything to that, or?
I think she pretty much covered it.
Okay, thanks. Any questions or comments from committee members first?
Mr. Swirsky?
Yes, Mr. Malik.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. McCullough, for presenting about this. Again, I think this is a evidence-based program to try to tackle what has been a really heartbreaking issue, particularly this year. I believe this is the second year that this program is in place. And
That's correct.
I believe the primary use of the funding is in additional like patrol shifts. Is that correct? Can you describe how the program has fit into the broader gun violence reduction picture this year?
I can. It's actually quite a few moving parts. So the gun violence response team is sort of where the basis is. Those are the folks that are collecting information and identifying individuals who have been known to have guns, have been known to commit felonies, and try to learn a little bit more about how to get into the community to address that. It also has a component where we work with the Attorney General's office to see if we can possibly take these cases federal, which provides longer sentencing for gun violence. So that is a component of it as well. But a portion of this is also spent internally talking with the patrols that are in the area, working with those folks that are out there every day to make sure that they know what's going on and that they can communicate back. It's also sharing information with other federal partners as well. So a lot of it is about information sharing. A lot of it is about data gathering so that we can do our best to address the situation, as you said, in an evidence-based way.
Just to clarify, it seems like a lot of the violence, when you look at it, is sort of highly mobile. Someone might live on the east side, but they might fire their weapon on the west side. Are you guys finding that that's the case, or is it pretty clustered within specific neighborhoods?
Captain, do you mind taking that one?
Yeah, while you're correct that there is some mobility, the actual incidents and the violence seems to be really concentrated in the Copley Road corridor as well as in that Arlington Street corridor. So while they might live or in other parts of the city, that's where they're going to do this. So we are tracking that, and it started with the area where it's happening, but then that moves outward. So the investigations eventually will lead us to those folks, but the incidents and the violence seems to be pretty well clustered in the data. It's a data-driven process. So we look at where these things are happening, and that's where we focus our efforts.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, this sounds like a really right on the mark program that uses data to inform police strategy, and also enables us to have a larger presence out in the community, to have more officers available to be out there listening and gathering information. So this sounds like a very worthy project. Do I have a motion to suspend the rules and vote on this tonight? I'd like it to start as soon as possible.
So moved.
And do we have a
Second.
second? Thank you. Thank you. And all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And noes? Okay, so that carries also one more. Ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to accept a grant from the Assistance to Firefighters Grant from the Department of Homeland Security and the Federal Emergency Management Agency, authorizing the expenditure of funds for procurement of equipment and provision of services consistent with the grant and declaring an emergency. So, Captain, are you going to talk about that, or Mr. Cout? Steve, how are you doing, Mr. Cout?
Good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee. So we are requesting legislation to accept this Assistance to Firefighters grant, and all that will also allow us to purchase the equipment and services that we have requested through this grant. We have been awarded right about $700,000 through this grant. The overall goal of this grant was to provide funding to continue our efforts to provide for the health and safety of all members of the fire division. The larger part of this grant is going to be used to go towards the installation of what's called source capture exhaust systems. Diesel exhaust is a known carcinogen, and this equipment, through a means of hoses and vacuums, will be installed in all fire station apparatus bays. They hook directly to the exhaust system of our apparatus, and this will capture 100% of diesel exhaust as the rigs exit and enter the station, which will eliminate the daily exposure that all of our members have to diesel exhaust. We have used older systems in the past to try to limit our firefighters' exposure to diesel exhaust. We've had older systems that are somewhat similar to this. We've had no smoke systems, which are installed on the rigs themselves that retain the exhaust. And we've also used DEF systems, diesel exhaust filters. None of those systems have proven to be able to eliminate 100% of diesel fumes. This new system, it's the latest and greatest out there, and it has proven to be able to eliminate 100%. So we're really excited and pleased to have been awarded about $500,000, which will cover the installation, the equipment and installation in all of our fire stations. Another about $200,000 of this grant will also be used to provide all members of the fire division with a comprehensive medical exam, which will include cancer and heart disease screening. This exam screens for cancers that are prevalent throughout the fire service. And one of the benefits will be to provide a reliable means for early detection of potential life-threatening diseases, so they can we can identify and treat those as early as possible. Source capture exhaust systems to reduce exposure to diesel, and then also comprehensive medical exams. So that pretty much sums up what we'll be using the funds for with this grant, and I'd be happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Okay, any questions from committee members first, or comments?
Mr. Swirsky,
Yes, Mr. Malik.
I just want to say to District Chief Cout and the whole department, we really appreciate the priority that Chief Tucker and the whole department has placed on the safety of officers, and particularly the health and well-being.
Yes, and any other questions or comments from council members, either on the committee or off the committee now? Anybody want to make a comment, question? Okay, yeah, I share Mr. Malik's concern for the health and safety of the employees, and so I applaud you. And a lot of people don't always think about, it's not just sort of a serious accident when there's a fire, when they're rescuing someone. There's sometimes ongoing occupational hazards and exposures when they go into even routine fires. So if this helps with that, really appreciate it. So saying that, do we want to have, would you like to have us vote on this tonight? Do you want us to suspend the rules, sir?
Yeah, I'd like to request a suspension of the rules, please.
Yes, since this has been, we've had the month of August off. I think we put a few things behind, but we're going to catch up real fast. So we have a council committee member who would like to make a motion.
Motion for suspension of the rules with a favorable report.
Okay. And second, okay. And all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And no votes, express yourself. Nay, none. Okay, the motion carries. And with that, then we will, unless anyone objects, I'll just adjourn this meeting. The resolution that Mr. Neal had, we'll talk about next week. Hopefully everybody will be back. Thank you all very much for being here.
Okay. Our next committee meeting is Public Utilities and Green Committee. So you can get started with that whenever you're ready, Councilman Swirsky.
Okay. Why don't 1 minute then? This one will do 1 minute. Okay. You want to stretch everybody a little bit? We only have 2 pieces.
Sharon,
Yes,
you've been here the whole time.
yes.
You like you're stretching your eyes to,
Oh.
to stay awake. Okay.
Nope, just hanging out.
Okay. Oh. Have you been having board meetings? Sharon,
I have not.
Sharon, have you had board meetings?
I have not.
Okay.
I've been in touch with people via email, Facebook, phone calls, but I have not had any.
Okay. I don't know how many people have, explored the virtual thing. I know Shamus has done so.
Yeah.
I had one like that. Because of Shamus's initial experience, which he encountered some weird stuff happening, I kept my list very, people had been to previous meetings and no publicity. So the turnout was way down, but it's just much nicer in person. I mean, that's the purpose of it. But yeah,
Well, the libraries still limit their people, but community
Yeah.
centers are opening up October 1st.
Oh, is that right?
Mhm.
And I know that
And
the
the
mayor,
city of Akron community centers, you're saying?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're still gonna limit the people, but not, I don't know what that limit is yet. It was announced today.
and I know the mayor expressed, that he was interested in working with Summit County Public Health to find some guidelines, I think, for ward meetings. I know that, based on the experience that we had, and then having Councilman Swirsky do a meeting, since then we put in place pretty significant robust restrictions. So we haven't had any more trouble, and the meetings have gone pretty smoothly with like 25, 30 people. So
Yours might have been just a lark, you know, even no matter
wow,
what, but
you're
it's
lucky.
bad luck or good luck. Yeah. So, but Miss, like to get started. Are we up at 3 minutes here, Sarah? Oh, she's somebody. She's handling 6 things at once as usual.
But yes, we're ready.
Okay. So this one I actually am the chair of. I'm not subbing, but I still need to do the same 2 things. One is, do I have approval for motion for approval of the minutes of the last meeting?
I'll make that motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, and we have a second?
Second.
Okay, and secondly, can we have a motion to suspend the rules about in-person meetings, requiring in-person meetings? Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
very good. And now I'll read the ordinance in. Ordinance ratifying the action of the Director of Public Service without the formality of publicly advertising for bids and entering into a contract or contracts with H.M. Miller Construction Company, Inc. for the emergency repair of the water main under North Firestone Boulevard at Girard Street, for the emergency repair of the water main under Middleton Road, water main replacements on Mill Street and Firestone Boulevard, and miscellaneous repairs, and declaring an emergency. So who is there someone here to speak about this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Ludlow, there you are. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. This is 4 water main repairs, actually 2 repairs and 2 replacements. The 2 replacements were in coordination with sewer work that was happening on those streets. When we did the excavation, we found the water mains. One was 102 years old, and the other one, I think, was 80 some years old. Were in such poor condition and leaks that we decided to replace the water main while they were there. So this goes back to last year, one of these repairs, and the contractor has finally billed us. So we have lumped all this into one piece of legislation. Unfortunately, the latest one we had back in, I think it was early July, on Firestone, right in front of the community center on the boulevard there on North.
Hey, Marco.
It caused it all the way.
Oh, man. I was blown away.
So,
I just
Somebody's
thought-
not muted.
Hold it.
Excuse me. Excuse me. Somebody's not muted, and there's a lot of background noise.
so anyway, this legislation will allow us to pay the contractor for those repairs.
Okay, are there any questions or comments from members of the committee? I see the total amount of money is 141,000.
Yes, sir.
I mean, 250.53. Okay. But this is work that's already been done that needs to be paid for.
It's all completed, yes.
Okay. All right. Any questions or comments from committee members? Any questions or comments from members who are not committee members, council members, not committee members? Okay. And I'm assuming, like almost every other piece of legislation, you would like to see us vote on this evening.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do I have a motion to do that, to suspend the rules and a favorable report?
Motion for suspension of the rules with a favorable report.
Okay. And do we have a second?
Second.
Very good. And so all in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay. So the motion, anyone who's opposed to it? No. Okay, so the motion carries. One more piece in public utilities, ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee after publicly advertising for bids or soliciting quotes to enter into a contract or contracts for the replacement of lead service lines at residences throughout the city of Akron and declaring an emergency. Do you want to explain that a little bit for us, please? Is that Mr. Ludlow?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. We have, out of our 85,000 services, water services, 4,400 are still lead, which means from the street up to the property line, lawn strip, we call it. Short side is, 7 to 8 feet, long side's all the way across the road. Well, Mayor Horrigan has always, since he's come to office 5 years ago, it's been a drive for him to let's get the rest of these out of the system. So we have restored over 600 of these lead services out of the 4,400 since he's been in office. Well, we have to give special credit this year to our water department, our water bureau. They have worked with the EPA, and Shelley, I see her on the call. She's been a big help with the CARES Act funding and the things that she's done with Akron Cares. And she put on a presentation last month to the Ohio EPA and the other water utilities around the state. Were very impressed with Akron. And that's with your help too, Council. But what this legislation will do will allow us, we are receiving a $1 million grant from Ohio EPA that it's basically 100% principal forgiveness. So we will not have to pay this back. We will use this grant to remove another 250 lead services on top of legislation you passed earlier, which was like $250,000. Okay, so with that, all I want to say is we've always looked at if the homeowner replaces their line and they have lead, we'll go back and do it. But going back to the mayor a minute, when we passed IT4 and we increased our resurfacing budget, it's like, don't crack open that street or resurface it if it has 10 lead services under it. So that's what we target. And that's what we'll be doing with this. And another thing that we're going to be doing with these funds is trying to, with Shelley's help, is get some smaller contractors involved. Because this, first of all, is not real, doesn't take a lot of big, expensive, deep digging equipment. As you know, our water lines are only 5 or 6 feet deep. So it doesn't require specialized equipment. Yes, you still have to have a backhoe. You still have to be trained. This will be a good training ground for us to get some smaller companies involved with not only our water mains, but maybe they expand into some of our other operations, whether it's the sidewalk program or the sewer program. So we're very excited about this, and we're already in negotiation for 2021. We're hearing there could be another grant available for another $1 million next year. So with that, that's what this legislation is for, and I will answer any questions.
Any questions or comments from members of the committee? Any questions or comments from other council members?
Yes, Linda Mobian. Excuse me?
Go ahead, Ms. Mobian. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Mr. Ludlow, will this prevent a situation like they had in Flint, Michigan, where you wouldn't have lead going into homes and children drinking water with lead in it?
Well, I mean, that was a little different situation. I mean, we've had lead in our system, unfortunately, for, ever since it was put in. There was a short time in the war where we look back at our records where the lead wasn't installed. And it was kind of strange because you look like when Kenmore was a city, we don't have a lot of lead in Kenmore. But some of the old neighborhoods like North Hill, there was a lot of lead installed because those houses went in the 20s. So what happened in Flint, they changed their water source. So they went from one system to another. So if we're a surface water, all our water is from our reservoirs up in Geauga and Portage County. If all of a sudden we went to a groundwater system, if we dug wells, and what happened was they didn't have the right agent in the protective agent to put that barrier on the inside of the pipes. We have
Okay.
consistently for years never been above an action level with EPA. In fact, this year we test every year, and we have certain lead services we test. This year we're one of the lowest we've been since they've been testing, and they didn't even test before the 80s. Okay, so this just helps. If something would get disturbed in that line, this would help if you remove the lead altogether. But we've always with our zinc orthophosphate, that's the chemical that we use in our water system to prevent that lead from leaking into the water system.
I see. Okay. So I was just wondering how you're going to get some good PR from that. That sounds like a lot of money, but it would, people would understand, but it wouldn't be as critical as that situation in Flint.
No, ma'am.
Any other questions and comments from either members of the committee or members of council who are attending? So this is a very, very needed public health action and environmental action. And now Mr. Little has informed us that special attention will be paid to attempt to recruit and engage and hire local companies to be involved with this, which means hopefully that it would sort of fit in. Would this fit in with some of the Elevate Akron effort? Mr. Little?
Absolutely. So that's our plan. And we obviously are going to perform more of this work with our in-house. So with our younger, maybe some of our APS students that we're able to hire through the intern program, this is a good training ground for them also to get acclimated to working in construction.
That's fantastic. Young Akron residents being hired to help maintain a positive infrastructure. That's great. That's great, Mr. Little. And are you going to set some goals in terms of that? Is it premature to do this at that point? I mean,
for this project, I mean, Shelley could speak to that more, but we definitely are working on that.
Excellent.
That's something we're going to analyze as to what minority businesses we have in the community that can fill this need, how we can cultivate minority businesses to fill this need, and then we'll determine whether goals and where the goals should be set for this project. But yes, absolutely, that's something we're continuously looking at as we are embarking on all of these projects.
That's really good. That's really good. I'm sure all the other council members feel that way. And please update us, keep us updated on the progress of that. Maybe it wouldn't be this committee. I don't know, the economic part might be in a different committee, but somehow keep council updated on that, please.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's great. I love the way you guys are thinking. Okay. Any other questions or comments from other committee members? I don't think so. Okay. So then I ask for a motion for suspension of the rules.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay. And all in favor, please indicate that.
Aye.
Aye.
And all opposed? Okay, the motion carries. The ordinance goes through this committee, will be voted on this evening. And thank you very much, Mr. Little, and all the council members in attendance. I'm going to move to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, let's do that. Let's just adjourn it. Okay, take care, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Our next meeting will be the Rules Committee. And those committee members are Freeman, Fusco, Amobian, Connor, and Malik. And we can get started whenever you're ready, Councilman Freeman.
Okay, we'll go ahead and begin right now. I'd like to call to order the Rules Committee, and I need a motion that we suspend our rules as pertains to us meeting live in person.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have nothing on the old agenda. Our first item is a resolution adopting amendments to rules of procedure for Akron City Council and declaring an emergency. And do we have President Somerville to speak on this? Was there anyone that wanted to speak to this?
We talked about it a little bit before we started our meeting, but it just looks like we're just gonna have remote meetings until the end of the year, until next year.
Okay.
I
Okay, very
mean,
good. Then we will go ahead and
I'm happy.
excuse me,
go ahead.
take time.
I was going to say I can happily speak to this a little bit. I was a little involved, so I'm happy to try to contribute if I can.
Please.
So we want to go back to doing regular meetings instead of special meetings. At this point, it looks like we are staying virtual. There doesn't seem to be an end in sight to that. So this ordinance would set our schedule for every regular meeting on Monday, except for holidays. And that would just set it so that we can do those virtually instead of meeting in person. And instead of the need to calling a special meeting each time, setting them as our regular meetings, although virtual instead of in person.
Okay, very good.
That means we don't have to call you anymore. We don't have to call you to let you know that we got the, okay. Okay, thank you.
Exactly. You can see why I had an invested interest in this one.
Okay, discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
this is John York. If I could just add, this would also negate the need for all the committees to routinely suspend the rules for in-person voting and in-person attendance.
Okay.
Because you, by adopting,
okay.
if these rules are
Thank you,
adopted,
Jen.
you wouldn't have to make all those motions each time. You would
Great.
virtually, with these amendments, be adopting rules that allow you to appear and vote virtually. But the caveat would be that you actually need to be visible and available with audio as council members.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. York.
Another point I would like to make, Mr. Chair, is that we could go back to using the consent agenda this way. If we're calling them regular meetings again, the consent agenda is allowed during a regular.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, I saw Mr. Fusco, and then I'll come to you, Mr. Malik.
Yeah, I obviously rise in favor of this and would like to see it happen. But there is quite a few moving parts in this. So I don't know if the committee would like to take a week just to kind of like look it over to make sure that everyone's comfortable with it. But I know a lot of effort went into it, and would be happy to make a favor. If the committee would like to move forward, that's fine. But it just seems like it might be prudent just to maybe take a week, and so everyone on council can take a look-see as well.
Okay, Mr. Malik.
Yeah, I just wanted to spotlight one other provision that I noticed, which is that I believe Ms. Viviano and the clerk's office worked on creating an additional method for public comment where people can call in and record their comments so it can be played, in their own voice. I think I really appreciate that effort to try to, make our meetings more accessible for folks. They can also still submit a public comment via email to be read. I do hope, though, that as we, particularly with the Reimagining Public Safety process, if we can try to find a way, since it appears we're going to be virtual for the time being, to see how we can accommodate public comments, possibly with video, going forward, since it is going to be a little while. But I really do appreciate the efforts that have gone on to this point.
Thank you, Mr. Malik. I don't see any other hands. Okay, Mr. Fusco, did you make a motion for us to take a week's time?
Yes, yeah, I would like to request that we take 1 week, just to give everyone an opportunity. There's a lot of different moving parts here, and I'm all in favor of it, and I'm sure we all are, but just to make sure everyone can digest it and know exactly what we're doing here on this item.
Would we be best if we have any questions to direct them to John York?
I think so. Or Sarah.
Or Sarah.
Either would be fine.
Okay, very good. Well, we
I'll
have a
second the
motion.
motion.
I have a second on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign?
Aye.
Okay, very good. Second, we have a resolution opposing Ohio Secretary of State Frank LaRose's directive banning county boards of elections from installing off-site secure drop boxes for submitting absentee ballots during the November 2020 election, and urging Secretary LaRose to immediately rescind the directive and declaring an emergency. I see we have Mr. Fusco. Was the mayor going to come in and speak on this, or Mr. Fusco, you want to take it?
I'm happy if the administration, I know having a conversation with Ellen, they do have something to offer on this. But just on the surface, the thing of it is this, and that is this would just simply make it easier. You know, right now in Summit County, you know, vote by mail due to the pandemic and what's going on with that, trying to make it easier for folks, especially folks that may be challenged in terms of, you know, driving, riding, you know, getting from A to B. You know, if we can make it a little easier for folks to have a secure spot, you know, that they can drop, it doesn't seem as though the cost would be that high. You know, and I know speaking with the leadership within the BOE, or at least some of the leadership at the Board of Elections, they'd like to see something like this as well. And right now, the employees at the Board of Elections, they are just totally swamped, and it's, you know, due to obviously the COVID. And so thinking moving forward, hopefully it would work in this election, and they could rescind that order that the Secretary of State had. But it would, I think, even moving forward, to make it easier for voters in a secure spot, a secure location that they could drop off, you know, their ballots, I think would benefit everyone, and that's hence the reason for this.
Any other comments?
Yes,
Yes, Ms. Mobian?
I totally agree that there are so many ways to put drop-off boxes throughout the city in secure fashion without being concerned about someone tampering with it. And it's just another form of voter suppression, I think. So I think we need to certainly pass this with, you know, emergency and need to do that. You know, suspension of the rules.
The ballots that are submitted in the boxes, are they then checked against voter registration cards?
Oh, I would think so. To make sure the person is registered to vote?
Correct.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, they would have to be, yeah.
Yeah, I would have to believe that, if you don't mind, Mr. Mobian, I don't want to interrupt.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I would submit that, you know, first step, of course, is to request the ballot, and then that would probably be mailed. And then once they receive the ballot, then they could drop it off in these boxes, these secure boxes. So I believe that's, you know, and anything that we can do to make it easier, safer, again, during this COVID time, I think we all would benefit.
Does
Especially in
Summit
light
County
of the
have
fact
any
that
sense yet how many boxes they'll be putting out?
right now they're only going to put one, right?
Yeah.
So just going to be the, okay. I didn't know if there was going to be multiple locations or.
Right now, there's only
No,
one
that's
outside the Board of Elections. So
Okay,
if you
very
live
good.
in Twinsburg, you're driving all the way down there to do it.
And I think if I can add, Mr. Chair,
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, I don't know if anybody else could hear Mr. Malik. I could not.
sorry, I stopped.
I think it stopped.
Like
Yeah.
Mobian was-
No. I thought you stopped. Go ahead.
Sorry about that. Anyways, just saying that, you know, having one drop box per county, as Mr. Fusco said, doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you have counties like Summit County, 600,000, or counties like Franklin County, 1 million people, it would be easy to have drop boxes at title bureaus or at libraries or things like that, and to do it securely because it's done securely at the Summit County Board of Elections, at all of the boards of elections. So I think this is, a pretty clear thing to move forward on in an emergency situation like COVID.
Exactly. And there are multiple ways they could work with other officials to do this and not worry about the boxes being tampered with. Again, I think it's just voter suppression personally. And who can trust the mail at this juncture? I don't think so. So I second the motion if there's a motion on the floor.
Yeah, I did motion suspension of the rules with a favorable report. Obviously, this is timely as early voting begins like in 3 weeks, I believe. So very soon.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, very good. And I believe that that's all we have, and we will call adjournment at 3:24. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for your patience. I know we've had a lot today. Our next committee meeting is Budget and Finance. Those council members are Freeman, Amobian, Malik, Baylor, and Lombardo. And you can get started whenever you're ready, Councilman Freeman.
Okay, we'll call the Budget and Finance Committee meeting to order. Need to make a motion that we suspend our rules that requires in-person meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we have nothing on the old agenda. Our first item is an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to apply for, and if awarded, accept and expend funding from the county COVID-19 local government payroll support grant program and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. So this piece is related to CARES Act funding. If you remember, we presented back in June an earlier piece, and that was the state distribution of CARES Act funding to the city of Akron. The county, through their CARES Act funding, is providing a match to that original amount. So this is $8 million, and it will be used for the payroll support program, which means that we can submit costs from our safety forces, meaning our fire department, our dispatchers, and our police department, and receive CARES Act funding for those costs that date back from the beginning of March to the end of the year. This legislation also provides for creating a fund to deposit those funds in. So we will be doing that. And then we will be submitting an appropriation amendment to budget the funds that we submit in this fund.
Thank you. Anything to add, Ms. Goodrich? Okay. Questions or comments? Mr. Malik?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Fricker. I know we're all glad that we have this money coming in from the county and from the federal government. Just, I guess, to clarify, I know we talked about this a little bit beforehand, but when we look at how the losses in revenue because of COVID to income tax, these amounts would appear to be far in excess of that, making up for it. And so I guess what is happening with the excess of money? Is it going back into just the general fund, or how is this money being spent?
It will go into the general fund. Keep in mind that that we do have other concerns in addition to the income tax in terms of funding that we have not received that we budgeted for this year. So those extend into our court revenues, our the casino revenues, our parking deck revenues, things like that. So while the income taxes income tax losses will not be as much as what the CARES Act funding provides. There will be, we do have additional concerns in terms of budgetary concerns, that we will need to address.
Thank you. And I guess just to follow up, it was very helpful in the summer when we had the presentation on sort of where we are financially with COVID. If something like that could happen, this month or later this fall, I think that would be really helpful to getting us to keep up with our understanding. Certainly, we'll not ever have the level of understanding of you and Ms. Goodrich, and we're lucky for that. But I think something like that would be really helpful.
Understood.
Any other comments?
I'll second what Mr. Malik has said.
Very good. Okay, do we have a motion for suspension of the rules?
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 Pose like sign. Very good. Our second item is an ordinance authorizing the purchasing agent or her designee, after publicly advertising for bids, to enter into a contract or contracts for custodial services for daytime sanitizing in high usages and public areas of the court facility and declaring an emergency. Who will we be hearing from?
Good afternoon. It's Montrella Jackson, Court Administrator, Acting Municipal Court. So the request before you is for continuation of emergency daytime sanitizing services that we want to put in place since June 1st. The court, of course, has been open, and this would carry out really what is necessary to maintain the safety to public and staff related to COVID-19.
Questions or comments?
I have a question.
Yes.
Ms. Montrell, do you have a contractor already? Or I know at probate court, when we have sessions there, there's a young lady who's cleaning all the seats and, the gallery area. So do you have a contractor in mind?
We have a couple of vendors that we've worked with. The existing one is certainly one that we're reviewing, but yes, it would be someone that would be constantly sanitizing, the doorknobs, even to the main floor of the court, because it's such a high volume traffic area with people coming through.
Ms. Baylor, I believe I saw your hand.
So would that?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, over in the Common Pleas Court, there's several people on there. I mean, they do it throughout the entire day. So whatever the process is, it's working. Because a lot of times I go, I think somebody's knocking it, like it's just us cleaning off the doorknobs and things like that. So I think that's having impact in keeping things sanitized and keeping the virus at bay. So I'm all for a program that does that. So that's it.
Mr. Chair, may I follow up, please?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, would there be opportunities for someone else to put in a bid or to express interest? I don't know if you needed more help or not.
So there was a list, the request actually went out to several vendors. So we did get a very good response from several vendors.
Oh, you've
but
already
that's
got-
not
okay.
to say that
Okay.
we wouldn't entertain more if
So
we had additional,
If someone,
or you
if
knew
someone
of
is
someone
interested,
that was interested.
have them get in touch with you? Who
Right,
would they
because
get in
this
touch with?
proposal is for the next few months for this year, but we're being told that next year as well, we will have to have a plan in place. It's very standard among the courts to have daytime sanitizing just because the thousands of people that come throughout the building. So.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Mr. Malik?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ms. Jackson. Two quick questions. First, I know that a lot of the hearings are happening via Zoom. Do we know sort of like what percentage of foot traffic we have now, or sort of what percentage of things are being done via Zoom? And then second,
So I don't have an exact, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. But
So I don't have an exact number, but I would say at least, 50% of or more of the work that we're doing is still on site. Our traffic court arraignments, and we still have all the pre-trials related to both the civil and the criminal cases. We did move our traffic court operations in the mornings to the mezzanine floor. However, in the afternoons, the trials are being handled on the 8th floor. So anything that's high volume, we've moved to the mezzanine. Probation is really the only area that's working probably, 70% remotely. But now with the cases increasing and us trying to clean up the backlog, our small claims we're having on site. So we still have a hefty traffic load that comes through the pedestrian flow that comes through the building.
Definitely. Thank you. And then the other half was, I saw the specifications, and has there been any discussion with APD about whether other portions of the building might also, be in need of this kind of service? Maybe, you guys could come together and in that regard, because I know the lobby is being covered by this, but I'm not sure if there are other sections that might be publicly traveled that might be helpful for this.
That is a very good question. Early on, before June 1st, we did work with the police department and the other entities in the building to get I forget what it's called. It's where they spray like after hours, like the hallways and the stairways. So they are doing those after hours. So we have worked together every week. At least the first couple of months we were meeting as a group. It was the court, Akron Police Department, the prosecutor's office. We were having a reopening meeting is what we called it. And we shared a lot of resources that way. But I would definitely recommend if, we did add the first floor just because, we have people coming through that main area. And so that's something we offered to include in our proposal.
Thank you. Maybe there could be a discussion with services subdivision or something like that to see if that's something they're interested in. But in any case, I definitely appreciate all the efforts.
Thank you. Mr. Fusco.
Thanks. Thank you. Just curious, the 31,000, I understand this is why the legislation arrives in city council because of the dollar amount. How long, what's the time frame are you estimating for these expenditures?
Well, this proposal would, we would hope would cover us through the end of the year. All the plans that we put in place is through December 31st, including our offsite jury trials. So I would say early November, we will start looking at our numbers, what our caseloads look like, how much we've been able to clear from the backlog, which we really have conquered quite a bit of, what was outstanding there.
Good.
So, but the proposal for you today is just for 2020.
Okay, thank you for that. The second question is that I would encourage, if you're going to move forward in January, there seems as though that there's been quite a few grants that have been made available, reference COVID, from the federal and the state side, and encourage, exploration of those kinds of funds. So that's all. But other than that, I would rise in favor of this, obviously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? For a motion to suspend the rules on this item?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, we will pass that out then. And if there's nothing else to come before us, we will adjourn at 3:40. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It looks like Mr. Neal had something.
It
Mr. Neal, I'm sorry, you were on the third screen over.
That's okay, sir. Just real quick, I was listening and I heard, I just wanted to ask Ms. Jackson if we could get as council, what the bid looked like for this. I know I've been approached by some minority companies that have asked, how do they do business with the city in this area so that we can make sure that when this comes back up for bid in January, that we have a list. And I would encourage this in everything that we do until we meet our goals with Elevate Akron, that we are intentional of having a list of providers from the Black community who can provide services such as this. But I'd like to have the specs for this so that I can get it out to them.
Absolutely. I can actually send that over to you, Councilman Neal. And just so everyone's aware, the city of Akron's working with the chamber to put together a portal where the city will specifically post opportunities for things like this. And minority vendors will register, and we will work together to try and get these opportunities out to our minority companies. So absolutely, I'll get you the specs, but this is definitely an area where we could have greater inclusion, and the city of Akron's working towards that.
And Ms. Goodrich, I appreciate that, but I want us to be intentional because the word minority opens it up for a larger perspective that wasn't outlined in the Elevate Akron report. Elevate Akron report talked about the disproportionate disparity for Black businesses. So I want to make sure that we focus on that, please.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we did have one of our African-American businesses, DB Environmental, they just won a bid on another cleaning contract with the city. So we are definitely making strides to try and reach out to those businesses and making sure that they're competing on jobs with the city of Akron. But I'll go ahead and get those specs sent over to you because we definitely want to engage all those businesses on any opportunity that we can.
Can you send it to all of us?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
All right. All right. If there's nothing else, we will adjourn. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. That's our last committee meeting for today.
Miss Sarah, I need to talk with you. When I get off of this, I'll call you.
Okay.
Sarah. Okay, thank you.